Thank you for joining me, Tom.
Thank you for having me, mate. Thank you.
You signed for Tottenham Hotspur when you were very young. How did that move come about?
I was just playing at my local NBL team, Sutherland Sharks, back in Sydney. Just playing couple grades up and just going through the motions. Didn't really, obviously my plan was to go be in Europe, play in Europe, but it was kind of never a goal then. I was just kind of trying to work on myself and try to be the best goalkeeper I can. And I got a touch on the shoulder when I was 14, asking if I would go, if I was interested in going overseas. And I said, of course, that's my dream. And they asked if I had an English passport, which I do. And yeah, 2 weeks later, I was on a plane to England.
London and Sutherland are two very different places. What was it like moving across the world to such a, different city as a teenager?
Yeah, it was different. Completely different lifestyle, completely different city. Yeah, just the total complete opposite to Australia and Sydney. What I was used to, I was used to beaches, hot weather, and it's a 3-hour drive to the beach and it's snowing. So yeah, it was completely different for me. But I had to find my feet pretty quick. That saying, sink or swim, and I had to swim to try to survive over there. Really.
How did you deal with the pressure of signing for such a big club?
Yeah, obviously there was that pressure, and obviously, there's media stuff for kid signs with Tottenham, and then you kind of got to ignore all that stuff, and you just got to put it to one side and try to become a better goalkeeper and a better version of myself, which I tried to do, and I'd like to think that I done. So, yeah, obviously there's going to be a pressure externally, being at such a big club, but you can't really focus on that too much.
Tottenham's number one, Hugo Lloris, is one of the best goalkeepers of this generation. What was it like working with a player of that caliber?
Yeah, it was amazing, and Michel Vorm, back in the early days, Brad Friedel was still around. So yeah, learning a lot of those guys was so beneficial to my game, and I'd like to try and pick different things off all those goalkeepers. So yeah, it was something that money can't buy, and it's something that I'll never ever forget, and I'll be forever grateful.
What was the most important thing you learned from Hugo?
Kind of just to enjoy it. He always had a smile on his face each day, and he just enjoyed it. And once you enjoy your footy, you become better each day. So yeah, he always just said, have a smile on your face, enjoy what you do, because it's a short lifespan being a footballer, and you got to make the most of each day. So yeah, just to enjoy it.
You signed a loan deal with the Mariners in 2017. What did you know about the A-League before signing?
Not obviously. I'd keep tabs of it. Obviously on social media when I was over there, but I'd never been in the system before going back there. I'd never been in the national youth teams. I was never selected for them. So yeah, I didn't really know too much. I didn't really know what the environment would be like, but yeah, it was kind of, I got thrown into something completely new. But yeah, it's something that I didn't play as many games as I would like to, but you can always look at the negatives, but I try to look at the positives. And being in a first team setup, being on the bench week in, week out, playing, made my professional debut there. So yeah, there's some negatives where I didn't play as much as I'd like to, but then there's a lot of positives that I can take out of that as well.
You played a lot of youth football for Tottenham. How big of a jump was it from playing youth football to senior football?
Yeah, I could say there was a gap, but obviously training with the first team day in, day out, it kind of prepared me for that. Um, training with the best players in the world, it's only going to help me. And, at the time, was I ready for first team football, playing week in, week out at 18? I'm not too sure. Maybe looking back at it now, probably maybe a bit underdone. But then I just go back to the drawing board and I just keep training, I keep working, and given the opportunity here at Melbourne City, is probably the perfect time to start playing week in, week out professionally. And it stems back to training for all those years with the first team, and coming through the ranks at Tottenham, which put me where I am today.
A lot of players seem to struggle with that transition, jumping up from youth football to senior football. Why do you think that is?
I think ultimately football is such a cutthroat industry, and it's that awkward age of 18, 19, 20 where people seem to go one way or the other. And for me, it's you know, once you turn 18, that's when the party you can go nightclubbing, and there's that whole different world that you weren't used to as a kid, where all you did was football. And I know a lot of my mates got caught up on the wrong road. They had the potential, and I know a lot of people who got caught in that wrong path, and who could have had the potential to be a professional footballer. So for me, going through those ages, it was head down football only, and obviously you got to have a balance outside of football. But yeah, I think it's like I said, it's a very cutthroat industry, and if you're not performing, the next one's always behind you. So it's that awkward step between transitioning from a youth team setup to a professional setup, but ultimately it's just how much work you put in will determine how much you get out.
After a few difficult seasons club-wise, you moved back to Australia with Melbourne City. Were you a bit hesitant to come back to the A-League, or were you looking more to prove yourself?
Bit of both. I had a fair few offers on the table, but it was kind of I need which was best suited for me and the best opportunity to progress my career. And I had offers in Europe. I had offers in the A League as well, but Melbourne City for me it stood out, and it's looking back at it now is the best decision I've made. I started off as a number two, but I backed myself. I'd had a couple of chats with people here in Australia, and they thought it was the right move as well. So yeah, it's kind of I backed myself, and it's got me where I am today.
As you said, you signed as a number two, and by the end of the season, you broke through to become not only the number one goalkeeper at Melbourne City, but you're also one of the best keepers in the league, being talked about as a potential Socceroo. What do you think was behind such a big jump within the season?
Yeah, for me, last preseason, I wasn't there as much, and I probably didn't get to showcase myself as much as I'd like. But for me, I just had to put my head down and just keep working. Like we saw, I wasn't playing the first 10 or so rounds, but I knew I just had to be patient, and when my opportunity came, I had to be ready for it, and which I did. I took it with two hands and I ran. So yeah, it's for me, it was all about being patient. And just waiting for an opportunity to take.
What's it like mentally being a number two goalkeeper, training with the first squad every week and knowing that you're probably not going to play unless there's an injury or a red card?
Yeah, it's always tough mentally. It's quite easier to come home, kick stones, and complain about everything. But I tried not to get into that mindset, and like I said, I'd use it as motivation to to become that number one goalkeeper, and to prove myself to everyone that I am a number one goalkeeper. And yeah, so it's quite easy to get in a negative mindset of you can start blaming other things, this, that, the other. But yeah, I try not to have that approach, and just to try stay positive and ultimately just keep working on myself.
With goalkeeping, there's a lot more of an emphasis on you when you make a mistake, and obviously only one goalkeeper is available every match. What would you say to a young goalkeeper coming through on how to deal with all that pressure mentally?
Yeah, well, ultimately, everyone that's part of goalkeeping. That's part of football. Everyone's going to make mistakes. You could speak to any goalkeeper in the world, even if playing at the highest level. If everyone's made mistakes. You just type it in YouTube. Football mistakes. People are doing it at the Premier League. People are doing it in the A League, all across the world. So ultimately, it goes back. You can't kick stones. It's happened. It's about polishing your gloves off and going again. Perfect example for me was in the derby when I made that absolute howler. You know, Touchwood will never happen again, but you learn from those mistakes. And for me, like I took from that no ball's an easy ball. I was probably too confident in it. So yeah, everyone's going to make mistakes, but it's how you deal with those setbacks and those mistakes which will make you grow and will make you stronger in the long run.
Last season, due to COVID, the league was stopped at about the halfway point. Did you find it hard to train and keep yourself fit and motivated during that period?
No, if anything, that was probably the busiest time I did training. Ultimately, I was back in Sydney and I didn't have much to do, so I was training 3 to 5 times a day, just to keep myself busy, to keep myself fit. And yeah, so No, I didn't really struggle hard to find motivation. I kind of got into a training routine, and yeah, I just kind of use that time to try to become fitter, stronger, and which I have.
You're currently City's oldest goalkeeper at 23. What's it been like so far having that leadership role?
Yeah, it's been great. I like to look at myself as a leader. Obviously with the goalkeepers, but in the team as well. So yeah, I love being a leader. It's something that's always been kind of within me. So yeah, it's a young group, but it's a group that always push each other. Everyone wants the best for each other, and each day we're pushing each other and working very hard day in day out. So yeah, it's a young group, but it's a very good group as well. So and everyone just wants the best for each other, which is the best thing about it.
You've been a key part of the Olyroos squad that qualified for the Olympics in the first time in over 10 years. What was that experience like?
Yeah, that was unforgettable. That was something that I'll never forget. It was only 2 days ago that it was a year since we since we qualified. So yeah, that will stay with me forever. That whole experience, the ups and the downs, and the things that we had to do to qualify. And it wasn't an easy trip. I think we're away for 6 weeks, and not being able to leave the hotel. It was and all the different foods. It was yeah. I'll be lying if I said it was an easy trip. But yeah, something that I'll never ever forget, and yeah, something that's so memorable.
Aside from football, of course, what are you looking forward to most about Tokyo?
Well, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. That obviously there's a lot of rumors going around. If it actually is going ahead, hopefully it will be, because I think that's a dream taken away from a lot of boys, and not just football, swimmers, athletes in general. So, yeah, I don't know how that will work in terms of outside of football. I don't even know if there'll be a ceremony, or it's kind of touch and go with that. So ultimately, I just got to try and think about now, and whatever happens in the future, that's what happens.
In your opinion, what is it about this group of players that are currently in the Olyroos that has helped make them so successful compared to Australia teams of the past?
Yeah, the one thing that I've been in other age groups, the older boys as well, and the one thing that kind of sticks out in this group, it's like a big family. There's that brotherhood about it, and we've all got each other's backs. There's no cliques and clans. Everyone's one, and everyone's ultimately just wants the best for each other. And Arnie always says a great thing. It's not 1 to 11; it's 12 to 23 as well that helps the team successful. So, yeah, it's a very tight knit group. And yeah, like I said, it's like a family, and I think that's why ultimately we've done so well in that tournament, because of that connection that we all have with each other.
You had an outstanding 2020. What are your goals for 2021?
Yeah, kind of just to grow from last year, to have a full season under my belt. That's the first priority, to play as many games as I can, and then ultimately try and break into that Socceroos team, and then obviously the Olympics as well. But yeah, I've just got to focus on my Melbourne City performances. If I do well at City, then I believe the rest takes care of itself, in terms of the national team stuff. So yeah, it's just kind of keeping my head down, training, and yeah, just playing consistent good football.
How was the experience last year getting to the grand final? Do you think that City can win the whole thing this time?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that it's fire in the belly. We came so close, but we fell so short. So, yeah, it's kind of one that's yeah, it still hurts, but it's kind of that we're using that as motivation to go that one step further than we did last year. And there's a real belief in the group. We've been a bit unfortunate with suspension and injuries the first couple of games. So, I think once all the boys are back, and we're at full strength with our depth. I don't see why we can't go all the way, and why we can't win it.
Melbourne City qualified for Asia for the first time in the club's history. What are your goals for Asia? Are you looking forward to it, or are you a bit hesitant?
No, I can't wait for it, to be honest. To play in those tournaments, they're very hard to get into. We still got to qualify for it, which will be tough, but it's also something that we test ourselves in the best of Asia. So yeah, to be a part of it, to be the first Melbourne City team to qualify for for Asia is obviously something very special, and something special to be a part of. So yeah, no, most definitely excited about being on that journey. That's for sure.
What has been the highlight of your career so far?
I'd have to say probably qualifying for the Olympics, and then obviously other things like signing for Tottenham, and then yeah, I'd say them two things. But yeah, I'd say qualifying for the Olympics and knowing how difficult it is to actually qualify. That's something that definitely sticks out to me.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I've appreciated you answering my questions.
No problem, mate. No problems at all.